Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. I'm so glad you're joining us again as we continue our deep dive into the world of Rumi.
Yes, welcome back.
We're on episode 2, which means we're still just at the beginning of our 40-episode journey through the Mofet series.
That's right, 40 episodes of exploring these amazing conversations between Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
Two brilliant Iranian philosophers.
Absolutely brilliant.
And of course, before we jump in, I just want to remind everyone that what we're hearing are translations of these really deep discussions.
Yes, definitely. And it's tough to translate, you know?
Right, some of those subtle meanings, those nuances.
But you might get lost along the way.
Exactly, and we apologize for any discrepancies that might cause.
We do. But even with those potential, limitations.
I think we can still uncover some incredible insights together.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. So much to discover.
So today we're going right to the heart of Rumi's masterpiece, the Masnavi.
Okay.
And we're focusing on just the opening lines.
Wow, just the opening lines.
Yeah. What do you think when you first heard that we're going to focus on just the opening lines?
I was like, how much can there be in just a few lines?
Right, but trust me.
Okay.
Rumi packs an entire universe of meaning into every single word.
Oh, he does. He doesn't waste any time.
He does, and he gets right to it.
Right to the heart of it. And the Masnavi starts with a powerful command, listen.
Ooh, I love that, listen.
Dr. Dinani points out, though, that the original Persian word, bishna, it means more than just hearing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it implies obedience or really, really deep attentiveness, like a surrender to what's being revealed.
Ooh, I like that. A surrender. It's like he's grabbing us by the shoulders and saying, wake up, this is important.
Yeah, exactly. It really sets the tone for the entire Masnavi as this journey, a journey of awakening.
It does. But then it makes you wonder, what exactly are we supposed to be listening to?
Well, Rumi gives us a clue right away, and it's a pretty unexpected one. He compares human beings to a reed flute or a ney. Now, this analogy might seem kind of strange at first, but it's incredibly rich with symbolism.
I'll admit, the first time I encountered that, I was like, a flute. What's the connection?
I know. What does that even mean? But Dr. Dinani, he helps us unpack this a little bit. He says, think about a ney. It's a very simple instrument, right?
Yeah, it's just a hollow reed.
Just a hollow reed, yeah. Yet from that simple thing comes this incredibly beautiful music. Haunting music, really, but only when the breath flows through it freely.
Okay.
You see the connection.
Yeah. Okay, I'm starting to see it. So Rumi's suggesting that we humans are like that.
Yeah, we have the potential for such profound expression, for beauty and meaning, but only when we empty ourselves.
Become an empty vessel.
Yes, and allow something greater to flow through us.
That's a powerful image, becoming an empty vessel. But what exactly are we emptying ourselves of?
Well, that's where Dr. Larijani jumps in.
Okay.
He says, think about all the clutter, all those thoughts, desires.
Attachments.
All those things that keep us so focused on me instead of the bigger picture,
Right.
Those are the blockages. They prevent that free flow.
Of the divine breath.
Exactly.
So it's about letting go of our ego, right?
Letting go, yeah. The stories we tell ourselves, the identities we cling to.
Which can't be easy.
It's not easy, but Dr. Dinani, he acknowledges that, for sure. He says letting go can be painful, but he also emphasizes that true transformation, true spiritual awakening, it can only happen through surrender.
Through that emptying.
It's in that letting go, that emptying, that our true potential is revealed.
Classic Rumi. He loves a paradox.
Oh, he does. To become full, we have to become empty, lose ourselves to find ourselves.
Exactly. And he uses this reed flute image, this ney, to illustrate it. It's just beautiful. He even describes the ney as having two mouths.
Two mouths.
Two mouths, one visible and one hidden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani see this as reflecting our dual nature, the dual nature of our existence.
Okay, two mouths. I definitely need you to unpack that one for me.
All right, so the visible mouth, they explain, that represents our connection to the physical world, right?
Okay, makes sense.
Everything we see, hear, touch, taste, smell, it's the mouth that's constantly chattering, trying to make sense of the world around us.
Always going.
Always going, yeah. How we interact with the material realm.
And probably the one that gets us into trouble.
Probably. Overthinking everything, right? Getting caught up in the drama, all the distractions.
Yeah.
But then there's the hidden mouth.
Okay, the hidden mouth.
This one represents our connection to the unseen world.
Okay.
The realm of spirit, intuition, that deeper knowing.
That you can't always put into words.
Yeah, it's the source of our inner wisdom, our connection to the design. So we're constantly receiving input from these two sources, right?
Right, the seen and the unseen.
Exactly.
So I guess the challenge is finding the balance between them.
It's all about balance. Rumi is suggesting that most of us, though, we get so fixated on that visible mouth input,
Right.
that constant stream of sensory data and all the mental chatter.
It never stops.
It never stops. We forget to listen to the whispers of the hidden one.
The whispers of the hidden
We're surrounded by this symphony of meaning.
Wow.
But we're too busy looking at the sheet music to hear the music itself.
That is such a powerful image. It makes you think, if we're like these neys, what kind of music are we each meant to play?
Yeah.
What's our unique song?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, the million-dollar question.
And Rumi ultimately leaves that for each of us to answer.
He does. But he gives us some clues.
He does, he does.
In those opening lines.
Dr. Dinani highlights that the Ney's music, it's often simple, pure, and has this melancholic quality.
Ooh, I can hear that.
Yeah.
There's a certain longing.
There is.
A yearning.
For something more. And Dr. Larijani suggests that those qualities, they mirror the soul's yearning for reunion with the divine.
Oh, wow. So maybe the music we're meant to play is the music of our own hearts?
Maybe.
The expression of our deepest longings.
For connection, wholeness.
Love. So it's not about reaching some perfect enlightened state.
No.
It's about embracing those raw, messy feelings.
Yeah.
And letting them become our music.
Beautifully put. It's about recognizing that the journey itself
Is the destination.
The journey is the destination, the longing, the searching, the moments of joy, the moments of despair. That's all part of the music.
It's all part of the music. It's amazing how much depth Rumi packs into those opening lines.
I know.
It really is.
Just a few lines.
He's giving us a roadmap for this entire spiritual journey.
And it all starts with that one command.
Listen.
Listen.
Listen. But in a world that's so full of noise and distraction,
I know, right?
how do we even begin to do that?
Well, both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani, they emphasize that true listening, it takes practice.
It does.
More than just having, functional ears.
Right.
It requires cultivating inner stillness.
Ooh, inner stillness.
A willingness to quiet the mental chatter and genuinely open ourselves to what we're hearing. It's about silencing that inner critic, that voice that's always analyzing and judging.
Oh, much easier said than done, especially these days.
Oh, I know. It is. It's hard. So much stimulation all the time.
Constant stimulation.
That's why Dr. Larijani, he suggests starting small.
Okay.
Find a quiet spot in nature.
Okay.
And just listen to the sounds around you. The wind rustling through the leaves, the birds singing, the water flowing in a stream.
Oh, I love that.
But here's the thing. You have to resist the urge to label or categorize those sounds.
Oh, that's hard.
It is. Just experience them as they are, without judgment or analysis.
Just be.
Just be.
It's like hitting the reset button on our overstimulated minds.
Right.
Allowing ourselves to simply be present in the moment.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani adds, we can apply the same principle to our interactions with other people.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Really hear what someone is saying, not just waiting for our turn to speak.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
Aren't we all? Or planning our brilliant response.
Yeah. Always think about what I'm going to say next.
Right. It's about being fully present with the other person.
Oh, that's tough.
It is, but when we don't truly listen, we miss out on so much. All those nuances, the emotions behind the words, those subtle cues that reveal a person's true feelings.
Right. We're only getting a surface glimpse instead of seeing their fullness.
Exactly. It reminds me of that beautiful Rumi quote that Dr. Dinani shared.
Oh, I love his quotes.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
Ooh. That is beautiful.
It's like he's inviting us to drop our judgments and meet each other in a place of pure presence.
Where true listening begins. And that kind of listening isn't just for our relationships with others, is it?
No, it's not.
It's for our relationship with ourselves.
Dr. Larijani reminds us of that.
Listening to ourselves. What does that even mean?
Well, think about it. We often try to drown out that voice of our inner wisdom with external noise, distractions. We lose touch with our intuition, those deep needs and desires.
That get buried under, the to-do list.
The demands of daily life.
All the demands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a way, we become strangers to ourselves.
We do. To reconnect, we have to create space to hear that inner voice.
So practices like journaling, meditation, even just spending time in quiet contemplation.
All those things can help us cultivate that inner listening.
It's about creating space to reconnect with that inner wisdom that's always there.
Always there, waiting to be heard.
This is so insightful. I'm realizing that listening isn't passive at all.
No, it's not.
It's an active engagement with the world, with others, and with ourselves.
It requires vulnerability, that willingness to be open to what we might hear, even if it challenges our assumptions or makes us uncomfortable.
Right. Makes us uncomfortable. Which brings us back to the Ney, right?
It does.
Its mournful song. It reminds us that vulnerability, that willingness to feel and express those deep emotions, it's essential to being human.
It is. It is.
And through that vulnerability, that openness, we allow that divine breath to flow through us.
Yeah.
To create something beautiful in the world.
Speaking of breath,
Yes.
Dr. Dinani dives into the power of sound itself.
Okay. The power of sound.
It's something we often take for granted,
We do. We do.
But it has such a profound impact on us. Our emotions, our thoughts, even our physical being.
Okay, now you got me intrigued. What did he say about the power of sound?
Well, he starts with this ancient concept, Nada Brahma, the world is sound.
The world is sound.
This idea, it comes from the Vedic tradition of India, suggests that sound is the fundamental creative force of the universe.
Wow.
Everything, from tiny atoms to vast galaxies, it's vibrating at a particular frequency, and those vibrations, they create the forms and structures we perceive.
So it's like this cosmic symphony, with every element playing its own unique note.
Exactly, and Dr. Dinani points out that even modern science, it's catching up to this ancient wisdom.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, string theory, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It proposes that the universe is made up of these tiny, vibrating strings of energy. So physicists, they're starting to see sound as this fundamental force.
That's amazing. But what about the impact of sound on us as humans?
Well, Dr. Dinani explains that our bodies, they're literally vibrating systems.
Okay.
And different sounds, they can influence those vibrations in all sorts of ways.
Okay.
Think about how calming nature sounds can be.
Oh, yeah.
Or how beautiful music can make you feel.
Absolutely. Gives me chills just thinking about it.
That's not just subjective, though.
It's not.
It's actually backed up by science.
Oh, wow.
There are studies showing that certain sounds can lower blood pressure, reduce stress, even promote healing.
So sound can literally impact our well-being. I knew music was powerful, but this is something else.
It really is. And Dr. Dinani goes on to talk about how sound is used in spiritual practices all around the world.
Right, right. Makes sense.
Chanting, mantra recitation. These practices, they're not just about pretty sounds.
Right.
They're about using sound to shift consciousness.
Okay.
Connect with deeper levels of awareness.
So sound acts as a bridge between the ordinary mind and the spiritual realm.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani, he adds that even just listening to music
Yeah.
can be a spiritual experience. It can transport us beyond our usual thoughts and feelings, connect us with a sense of beauty and wonder.
I've definitely had moments where music has moved me to tears.
Me too. Me too. Or given me goosebumps. It's like it touches something deep inside that words can't quite reach.
It's powerful.
That's the power of sound. It bypasses the rational mind. And it speaks directly to the soul.
Directly to the soul.
And Rumi understood this. He wove it masterfully into his poetry. He uses all these images of musical instruments, the ney, the rabab, the daf,
Right.
to convey these profound spiritual truths.
He was like a sonic architect, creating a symphony of spiritual meaning.
What a beautiful way to put it.
So tell me, how does he use those instruments specifically?
Well, the rabab, for instance, it's a stringed instrument, and it often represents the soul's yearning for the divine.
Okay.
It has that very plaintive, melancholic tone that evokes longing and separation.
Yeah. And the daf, that's the frame drum, right? That must have a different vibe.
Definitely. Rumi uses the daf to symbolize the heartbeat of the universe, the rhythmic pulse of creation.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a reminder, isn't it?
Yes. Of that interconnectedness.
Of everything.
Of everything. And of course, we can't forget about the human voice.
Oh, yes.
Rumi uses that in so many ways, right?
He does. Sometimes to represent the divine call, that whisper of truth that's guiding us towards enlightenment.
Yeah, yeah. And other times, it's like the soul's cry.
Expressing its longing for union with the beloved.
So sound can be both a call and a response.
That's it.
A way of sending and receiving messages from the spiritual realm.
What a beautiful insight. It speaks to that interplay between our human longing, and that divine grace that meets us along the way. It's back and forth.
It's a dance.
It is.
It's a dance. It's amazing to think that Rumi wasn't just a poet. He was a master of sound.
He was.
Using words and imagery to create this whole sonic world that we're invited to step into.
Yes.
So we've been talking a lot about how to listen, but let's get back to that opening line of the Masnavi. Listen. Dr. Dinani said something really interesting about the original Persian word.
He did. He pointed out that Bishna, while it can be translated as listen, it also carries a connotation of obey or heed.
Okay.
So it implies a deeper level of engagement, not just passively hearing, but actively paying attention, being receptive. It's about receiving the message and letting it penetrate deeply.
So Rumi's demanding more than just letting the sounds wash over us. He's asking us to engage with what we're hearing,
Yes.
to let it sink in,
Let it transform us.
let it transform us. And Dr. Larijani adds that Vishnu also implies taking action based on what we hear.
That's right.
It's not just about absorbing the wisdom, but actually doing something with it, bringing it into our lives, letting it shape our actions.
It's about embodying it, living it.
It's about lived experience, not just intellectual understanding.
Exactly. Rumi's poetry, it's not meant to be just admired. It's a guide for living, a roadmap for the spiritual journey.
A roadmap. I like that. And that journey starts with that single powerful command.
Listen.
Listen, but how do we move beyond just appreciating the beauty of his words? How do we actually extract that deeper meaning, that roadmap he's offering?
Well, both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani, they emphasize that understanding Rumi requires a shift in perspective. We need to move beyond the limitations of our logical linear thinking.
It's like learning a new language.
It is the language of the heart, the language of intuition.
Exactly. Dr. Larijani points out that our Western analytical mindset, it can actually be a hindrance to understanding Rumi. We try to dissect his verses, break them down into neat, logical parts,
Right, trying to solve a math equation.
when what we really need is to tap into something deeper,
Something that logic can't grasp.
something that resonates with our souls.
Rumi, he's not interested in providing those neat explanations. He's using poetry to point to something beyond language. Concepts. Dr. Dinani, he compares it to Western philosophers trying to define meaning.
Oh, yeah.
It's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle.
You can't do it.
You can't. So how do we shift our perspective?
Right. How do we do it? How do we cultivate that intuitive understanding that Rumi's inviting us into?
Dr. Larijani suggests approaching Rumi through the lens of love.
Love? Okay.
Remember, his poetry, it's a love song to the divine.
It is.
It's an expression of the soul's longing for union, so we need to read with our hearts open.
Read with our hearts open, not just our heads.
Exactly. Feel it in our very being. And Dr. Dinani, he adds that we need to embrace ambiguity.
Ambiguity. Okay.
Rumi's poetry is full of paradoxes, contradictions, layers of meaning. He's not giving us easy answers.
He's not.
He's inviting us into a mystery, a journey of exploration.
So it's less about finding the right interpretation and more about letting ourselves be touched, transformed, inspired by his words.
That's it. Dr. Larijani uses this beautiful analogy. He compares reading Rumi to gazing at a starry night sky.
Oh, I like that.
We can try to count the stars, categorize them, map their positions, but in doing so, we miss the awe-inspiring beauty of the whole.
The vastness.
The vastness, the mystery of the cosmos.
We get lost in the details.
We do, and we forget to appreciate the bigger picture.
To experience the wonder.
The wonder. And it's the same with Rumi's poetry. We can analyze his metaphors, dissect his verses, but we risk missing the transformative power of his words.
Right.
The way they can lift us out of our ordinary consciousness and connect us with something greater than ourselves. It's about surrendering to the mystery.
Surrendering to the mystery.
Letting go of our need to control and analyze everything. To just be present with the experience.
To just be. And in that surrender, that letting go, the meaning might reveal itself. Not through our intellect, but through our hearts.
Through our hearts. That's what Rumi's poetry is all about. It's a doorway to a deeper experience of reality. A realm where the boundaries between the self and the divine dissolve, and the heart becomes a vessel for the infinite.
This has been such a profound exploration, and it feels like we've only just scratched the surface of Rumi's wisdom.
We have.
It's incredible how much is packed into those opening lines of the Masnavi.
It's amazing.
It's like a tiny seed that contains the blueprint for an entire forest.
And we, as readers, as listeners, we're like gardeners tending to that seed.
We are.
We nurture it with our attention, our open hearts, our willingness to listen deeply.
And as we do, that seed begins to sprout, grow, blossom into a whole garden of understanding.
It's a reminder that even centuries later, Rumi's words, they still have the power to awaken, to inspire, to guide us toward a more meaningful life.
They do. And the journey doesn't end here.
No, it doesn't.
We have so much more to explore.
We do.
So many layers of meaning to uncover.
So many frequencies of wisdom to attune ourselves to.
And it all begins with that one simple but profound command. Listen. As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we leave you with this question to ponder. If we are, as Rumi suggests, like ney flutes, what music are we meant to play in the world?
What might be blocking that divine breath from flowing through us? And how can we clear those blockages so our true song can emerge?
Those are powerful questions to sit with. Could we all strive to become instruments of peace, love, and wisdom, allowing our unique melodies to contribute to the harmony of the universe?
Beautifully said. Now, shifting gears slightly,
Okay.
Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani take us deeper into that image of the ney being cut from the reed bed. Remember, we talked about how that symbolizes the soul's journey, but what does that separation really mean?
Right. Is it a literal separation, a physical separation, or is it something more symbolic?
Well, Dr. Dinani is quick to point out that Rumi's not suggesting we were literally snipped off some heavenly branch. He's using poetic language to describe a much more profound existential separation.
So it's more about a separation of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like we've forgotten our true nature,
Yes.
our connection to the divine.
Exactly.
Right.
And to explain this, Dr. Larijani brings in this Sufi concept of forgetting.
Forgetting.
He says that when the soul descends into the material world, it becomes veiled,
Okay.
as if it's forgotten its divine origin.
Oh, wow. It's like we fall asleep and forget who we really are.
Exactly. And that May song, it's like it jolts us awake.
It's our wake-up call.
It is, reminding us of our true home.
And Dr. Larijani also connects this to the work of Ibn Arabi,
Yes, he does.
another Sufi mystic.
Another mystic.
And he also used the reed flute to represent the soul.
That's right. So this idea, it's woven throughout the Sufi tradition. It speaks to a universal longing for that lost connection.
So this isn't just a Sufi concept.
No.
It's a universal human experience.
That feeling of separation, that longing for something more, it's in our DNA.
It really is. It's fascinating. And Dr. Dinani points out something really interesting here. He says the ney's music, it's not about mourning that separation.
It's not.
It's about celebrating the potential for reunion.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a sad song.
It's a hopeful song.
It's hopeful, it's yearning, yes, but it's also full of anticipation,
Anticipation of what?
of the joy that comes from knowing that we can return to our source, to the beloved.
That totally changes how I hear the Ney's music now.
Me too, me too.
It's like it's beckoning us.
Calling us home.
Yeah, calling us back to our true selves.
Back to our true selves. And speaking of home, let's dive a little deeper into that image of the reed bed. What does that symbolize?
Well, Dr. Larijani suggests that it symbolizes that primordial unity, that state of oneness from which all things emanate.
Okay, so that sounds a lot like the concept of non-duality that we talked about before.
It does.
The idea that there's ultimately no separation between us and the divine.
Right. Our journey in this life.
Is a journey back to that unity, a remembering of who we truly are.
Exactly.
And the ney's music, with all its longing and yearning, becomes a reflection of that journey.
It does.
It does. It's beautiful. I love how Dr. Larijani brings in the concept of the beloved.
Oh, yeah.
It just adds this whole other layer of meaning to Rumi's poetry.
It does, absolutely. In Sufi mysticism, the beloved represents the divine,
Okay.
the ultimate object of our love and our longing, and the soul's journey is often described as a love affair,
Oh, wow.
a passionate pursuit of union with the beloved.
Which makes the ney's song even more poignant.
Doesn't it? It's like a song of a lover separated from their beloved, yearning for that reunion.
And that yearning
That longing
is what fuels our journey.
it's what drives us to seek meaning, to connect with something beyond ourselves.
It's that driving force. I'm starting to see how Rumi's poetry is so much more than just beautiful words. It's this roadmap for the soul's journey. And that journey begins with listen. But how do we actually listen?
How do we do it?
What does that look like in our everyday?
You know, it's amazing as we go deeper into these opening lines of the Masnavi, how Rumi blends the tangible and intangible.
Yeah.
He uses this very familiar image
Right.
of a reed flute to help us understand these profound spiritual truths.
It's true. The simplicity of it is almost disarming. You wouldn't think a reed flute could hold so much wisdom. But as we've been exploring, the ney becomes a powerful symbol for our own potential.
It does.
For connection, for letting go, for becoming instruments of something greater than ourselves.
And that's key, isn't it, to unlocking that potential.
It is. It is.
Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani, they both emphasize cultivating the art of listening, not just the listening we do with our ears,
Right.
but a deeper, more soulful kind of listening that engages our whole being.
You're right. Earlier we talked about the ney having two mouths, reflecting that dual existence that we all experience. The visible mouth, attuned to the physical world, and the hidden mouth, connected to the unseen realm. But how do we actually shift our attention to that hidden mouth?
How do we do it?
How do we learn to listen to those whispers of the soul amidst all the noise of the world?
That's a good question. And Dr. Dinani suggests it begins with creating space for stillness. He encourages us to think about our lives
Okay.
like a bustling marketplace.
Okay.
So much activity, so many voices, all clamoring for our attention. In that environment, it's easy to get overwhelmed,
Oh, it is. It is.
to lose track of our own inner voice.
It's like we're constantly bombarded, information, stimulation demands on our time and energy.
All the time.
No wonder we feel disconnected.
From ourselves.
Yeah, from ourselves.
So his advice is to step out of that marketplace.
Okay.
From time to time,
Step out. Okay.
find a quiet corner,
Yeah.
a place of solitude, where we can reconnect with our own inner rhythm. It might be through meditation, spending time in nature, or just creating a quiet space in our homes. Just to be still.
To just be.
To just be.
It's about intentionally creating that space
Yes.
for inner listening, rather than waiting for it to magically appear.
Exactly. And as we create that space, Dr. Larijani adds, we might start to become more attuned to the subtle language of the soul.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It speaks to us through intuition, through dreams, through synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences
Yeah.
that seem to guide us along our path.
It's like we start to notice a whole new layer of reality that was always there, but we were too busy to see it before.
Exactly. And that's where the real adventure begins, because as we learn to listen to those whispers of the soul, we start to align ourselves with a deeper wisdom, a more authentic way of being in the world.
This makes me think about how we often try to force things in our lives. We set goals, we make plans, we try to control outcomes. But maybe there's a different way, a more receptive way, where we listen to that inner guidance and allow things to unfold more organically.
I think you're onto something really profound there. And it's something that Rumi himself embodied so fully.
He did?
His life was a testament to the power of surrender, of trusting in the unfolding of the divine plan.
It takes a lot of courage, though.
It does.
To let go of that need to control, to trust that something wider is guiding our steps. But it can be incredibly liberating.
Oh, it is. It's about moving to a place of fear and scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
to a place of love and abundance. When we align ourselves with that divine flow,
Yeah.
we open ourselves up to possibilities that we could never have imagined.
Possibilities we couldn't have imagined. And that alignment, that surrender, it requires a deep listening, a willingness to let go of our own agendas and be open to the guidance that's always available to us.
Beautifully said. It's about becoming like the Ney,
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to be hollowed out, emptied of our preconceived notions and attachments, so that divine breath can flow through us freely.
And the music that emerges
Yes.
is a reflection of that divine love, a symphony of the soul that resonates throughout the universe.
What a powerful image. It's a reminder that we're all interconnected.
We are,
Part of a cosmic orchestra, right? Where each instrument
each individual instrument.
plays a vital role in creating this symphony of existence.
I love that analogy. It really speaks to the beauty and the power of our unique contributions
It does.
to the world. So let's dive back into the Masnavi and see what other sonic treasures we can uncover.
Let's do it. Rumi continues to weave that image of the Ney throughout those opening lines.
He does.
Deepening the metaphor,
Mm-hmm.
revealing new layers of meaning. One passage that stood out to me, he describes the Ney's cry as a tale of separation. And Dr. Dinani explains that this separation, it's not just about physical distance.
Right.
It's about the soul's longing for reunion with its divine source.
It's like that feeling of homesickness we sometimes experience.
Yeah,
That deep yearning for something we can't quite put our finger on.
exactly. And that yearning, Dr. Larijani says, it's actually a sign of our spiritual awakening. It's the soul recognizing its separation
Okay.
from the beloved,
From the beloved.
crying out for reunion.
So it's not something to be avoided
No.
or suppressed. It's a positive sign.
Absolutely. It's something to be embraced, explored, allowed to guide us back to our true home.
That's a very liberating perspective. It's like giving ourselves permission
Yes,
to feel that full range of our emotions, including the sadness
yes.
and a longing. That can sometimes accompany the spiritual journey.
And those emotions, as Rumi suggests, they're not separate from the divine. They're part of the tapestry of our being, threads that connect us to the very heart of creation.
So we don't need to transcend our emotions. We need to integrate them, allow them to flow through us like the breath flowing through the May.
Beautifully said. And as we do so, we might find that those seemingly, negative emotions, like sadness and longing,
Yeah,
they can become sources of creativity and inspiration.
that's a really powerful thought.
It is, isn't it?
It's like Rumi suggesting that our wounds can actually become are portals to the divine.
And those wounds, as Dr. Dinani points out, they're often the result of our attachment
To
the illusion of separation.
Okay.
We cling to our identities, our possessions,
Our beliefs.
our beliefs. And we suffer when those things change or disappear. It's like we're building our houses on sand instead of on solid ground.
Sort of on solid ground.
And the Ney's cry is a reminder that everything in this material world, it's impermanent.
It is.
Subject to change and decay. It's an invitation to find our grounding.
Okay.
In something more enduring, something beyond the fleeting pleasures and pains of this world.
So how do we shift our focus then? Where do we find that solid ground?
That's where the concept of the beloved comes in. Remember, the beloved represents the divine.
Right.
The eternal source of love and beauty that transcends the limitations of time and space. It's the ground of being itself.
So by shifting our focus from the transient to the eternal, from the outer world to the inner world, we can find a sense of peace and stability.
Amidst all the chaos.
Amidst the constant flux of life.
That's the essence of Rumi's message.
It is.
He's inviting us to reorient our lives around that axis of love, to let go of our attachments to the impermanent and embrace the everlasting.
But embracing the everlasting doesn't mean we have to renounce the world.
No.
Or live in a state of detachment, right? It seems like Rumi is suggesting a different kind of engagement.
He is.
One that's grounded in a deeper awareness of our true nature.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that the divine is woven into the fabric of our everyday experience.
Okay.
It's present in every breath, every heartbeat, every encounter. Rumi poetry reminds us that the spiritual path isn't about escaping the world. It's about embracing it.
Embracing it.
Fully, with all its joys and sorrows, and recognizing the divine spark that animates every aspect of existence.
So it's about bringing that sense of sacredness into everything we do, from the simplest acts to the most profound experiences.
Exactly. It's about seeing the world through the eyes of love.
Through the eyes of love.
Recognizing the beloved's face in every reflection. And as we cultivate that awareness, that sense of interconnectedness, the illusion of separation
starts to dissolve.
It does, and we experience this profound sense of peace.
Peace. And belonging.
And belonging.
That sounds like a beautiful way to live. But it requires a certain level of attentiveness, doesn't it? A willingness to pay attention, to listen deeply, to the whispers of the divine that are always present.
They are, if we know how to tune in.
Right, if we know how to tune in. And that brings us back to the importance of cultivating stillness, of creating space for silence.
And contemplation.
And contemplation in our often chaotic lives. It's about finding those quiet moments where we can step out of that marketplace,
Step out.
so to speak, and reconnect with that source of our being.
Just hit the pause button.
Hit the pause button.
On the autopilot of our minds.
And just be.
Just be. And in that stillness, in that space of pure awareness, we might just catch a glimpse of the beloved's face, reflected in the mirror of our own hearts.
This exploration of Rumi's wisdom has been so enriching, so insightful.
It has.
It feels like we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
We have.
Of what his poetry has to offer.
That's the beauty of Rumi. His words are like a bottomless well.
They are, always offering fresh insights and inspiration.
To those who are willing to dive in.
To those who are willing to dive in. As we continue our journey with Rumi throughout this series, may we remember the lessons of the Ney.
Yes.
To listen deeply, to embrace our vulnerability, to surrender to the flow of the divine, and to allow the music of our souls to resonate throughout the universe.
Beautifully said. And until our next deep dive together, may you continue to cultivate that inner stillness, listen to those whispers of your heart, and remember the truth of who you truly are.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wisdom Unveiled. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the rich world of Rumi's mystical poetry. Until then, may your journey be filled with love, light, and the music of the beloved.
And may the wisdom of Rumi continue to guide us
toward that which is most essential, most true, most beautiful. Goodbye for now, and may your hearts be filled with the melodies of the divine. It's amazing, you know? As we go through these opening lines of Rumi's Masnavi, it strikes me how much wisdom is packed into just these few verses.
I know, right? It's incredible. Rumi has this ability to pack so much meaning into every word, every image, and one of the key themes that keeps coming up, that keeps emerging, is this idea of remembering who we really are, of recognizing our connection to the divine, that inherent connection.
Right, that inherent connection. And we talked earlier about the Neyestan, that primordial realm of unity where the Ney was cut from. And Dr. Larijani described it as a place where there's no separation, between the self and the beloved.
Exactly. It's such a powerful image. That reminds us that our sense of separation is really an illusion.
It is.
At the deepest level, we are all interconnected. We're part of this vast web of being that Rumi describes so beautifully.
But if that's true, why do we experience such a strong sense of separation? Why all this talk of longing and yearning for reunion? If we're already one with the divine, why does it feel like we're so far away?
That's a great question. A lot of spiritual seekers, they grapple with this. Dr. Dinani offers a perspective that I think is really insightful. He explains that our sense of separation, it stems from this attachment to the ego, that part of us that identifies with that limited self,
Right.
the transient self. So we cling to our thoughts, our beliefs, our possessions. And in doing so, we create a barrier, an artificial barrier between ourselves and the rest of existence.
So we're building walls around ourselves, separating ourselves from the very source of love and connection that we're longing for.
We are. It's ironic, isn't it? Because those walls, they're built with materials that are impermanent. Everything in this material world, it's constantly changing, subject to decay, to dissolution. So when we try to find lasting happiness or security in these external things,
We're setting ourselves up for disappointment.
we are. It's like building our house on a foundation of sand. It's just a matter of time before the tide comes in and washes it all away.
Wow. Powerful analogy. And Rumi reminds us of this impermanence throughout his poetry. He encourages us to shift our focus from the fleeting pleasures and pains of this world to something more enduring, more stable, more real.
And that's something more, that more stable, more real, as we've been talking about, is the beloved.
The beloved?
That divine essence that permeates all things, that connects us all at the deepest level.
But embracing the everlasting doesn't mean we have to pronounce the world or live in a state of detachment, right? It seems like Rumi's suggesting a different kind of engagement with the world.
He is.
One that's grounded in a deeper awareness of our true nature.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that the divine is woven into the fabric of our everyday experience.
It is.
It's there in every breath and every heartbeat, in every encounter.
It's everywhere.
Rumi's poetry, it reminds us that the spiritual path, it's not about escaping the world, it's about embracing it fully, with all its joy and its sorrow, and recognizing that divine spark that's animating every aspect of existence.
So it's about bringing that sense of sacredness into everything we do, from the simplest act to the most profound experience.
Exactly. It's about seeing the world through the eyes of love, recognizing the beloved's face in every reflection. And as we cultivate that awareness, that sense of interconnectedness, the illusion of separation,
It starts to dissolve.
it does, and we experience this profound sense of peace and belonging.
That sounds like such a beautiful way to live. But it does require a certain level of attentiveness, doesn't it? A willingness to pay attention, to listen deeply
It does.
to the whispers of the divine that are always present,
They are always present if we know how to listen.
if we know how to tune in.
That's it.
Which brings us back to creating stillness.
To creating that space for silence, contemplation in our lives, which are often chaotic.
They are.
Finding those quiet moments, stepping out of that marketplace.
Stepping out of the marketplace.
To reconnect with that source of our being.
Hitting the pause button on the autopilot of our minds.
Just being.
Just being.
And in that stillness, in that space of pure awareness, we might just catch a glimpse of the beloved's face, reflected in the mirror of our own hearts.
This has been such a profound exploration of Rumi's wisdom, and I feel like we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what his poetry has to offer.
We have. It's the beauty of Rumi. His words, they're like a bottomless well.
They are.
Always offering fresh insights, inspiration for those who are willing to dive in.
For those willing to dive in, as we continue on this journey with Rumi throughout this series, may we remember the lessons of the Ney,
To listen deeply, to embrace our vulnerability,
to surrender to the flow of the divine.
and to allow the music of our souls to resonate throughout the universe.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us on Wisdom Unveiled. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the rich world of Rumi's mystical poetry. Until then, may your journey be filled with love, light, and the music of the beloved.